Holidays bring feasting, fluffy dinner rolls, tasty stuffing, and your family's French toast bakes. With Hero Bread, indulge in your holiday favorites, made with Hero Bread sliced bread loaves, bagels, croissants, buttermilk biscuits, and more. And don't forget their Hero Hawaiian rolls. With 4 grams of protein and 0 grams net carbs, Hero Bread has you covered with 0 to 5 grams net carb and high fiber options, so your holidays stay delicious and balanced. Like their 3 grams net carb pan au chocolat. Hero Bread is offering 10% off your order. Go to hero.co and use code FALL25 at checkout. That's FALL25 at hero.co. All figures are per serving of Hero Bread. Contains up to 17 grams of fat per serving. See the product nutrition panels on hero.co for more information.
On this episode of Narcissist Apocalypse, we talk with an abuse survivor named Phoenix, and Phoenix was married to a physically abusive cult member. It's a story of manipulation, threats, the fog, and shame in the aftermath of abuse. Welcome to Narcissist Apocalypse, everyone. With me today, we have Phoenix. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm well, and thank you for being here. You know, today we are going to hear a story that is a little bit different. I've been saying that a lot lately, but this is a story where it has to do with your relationship with someone, where you were in a relationship with someone for 3 years, but what led you up to that relationship is you eventually in your life joined a cult. And you didn't join that on your own. Your parents joined it first, and then you went with it. And it's going to be a really interesting story for people to hear, a lot to learn from as well. So thank you so much for being here. And now, without further ado, Phoenix, the floor is now yours.
Thank you. Thank you again, for having this platform for people like us who's been through narcissist abuse, and so we can, express ourselves and see there's other people like us. So I have, my mom and my dad have 3 kids. I have a twin brother, and where I was born, having daughters was frowned upon. And when I was born, my mom actually hid me. She only claimed that she had a boy and not twins, a boy and a girl, for about 2 years from, my dad's side of family. And then, that kind of played a big part of who I am. Just knowing not being accepted and everything. And so, just I kind of grew up thinking that I was not wanted because, my parents had me, my mom's mom raised me when I was a baby. Only 10 days old, my mom gave me to my grandmother, and she raised me till I was 5 or 6. That's when my parents took me back. So just growing up, knowing that my parents didn't want me and all that, so that kind of shaped. And reason why I'm mentioning that is, when you have those wounds from when you're little, they become a reason why you could get sucked in by a narcissist, because they'll see that and they'll use that to, kind of pull you in. So growing up, my grandmother was really spiritual, so I kind of grew up being spiritual as well. We used to go to temples and just wanted to know what was out there, as in God, if anyone's up there, and
So when it comes to your relationship with your parents, once
yes, sir.
You are given back to them and they take you back, what is your relationship in the sense of, are you a dutiful child to them? Are you someone who is listening to them all the time? Are you rebellious, or are you just obedient to them?
Yes. So I was, when my parents first got me, they were kind of strangers to me, because from a baby till I was like 5 or 6. I saw them maybe like a couple times a year. And so I was in a place where I was a little rebellious. Like, I want to go back to my grandma. I wanted to go back to my home. And Brandon, I've been doing some therapy on my own, like reading books that other people, narcissist survivors, have recommended in your podcast, which, thank you, they've mentioned. And then I've started reading up on that to see, what kind of made me into the person that I am. And from reading those books and doing some research, I figured out that my mom was actually a covert narcissist. She is a covert narcissist. So, anytime I would like talk to her, even when I was little, she would treat me really badly in person. And I remember when I was little, she told me, she's like, I never wanted you. And it hurt. And then, if I would tell her, okay, then, send me back to my grandma, like, she loves me. And she broke me to a point like where she said, oh, they don't want you either. You're a burden. And the way she would treat me, like, it just kind of like broke me that, okay, I can't go anywhere else. So then when I was little, I was like, okay, I wasn't getting the attention from my mom. So I realized if I work really hard and I got good grades, my dad would notice me. So I started studying a lot, and then kind of became, competitive for that love. And I kind of feel bad for that as well. That I wasn't the sister that my brother needed, because I was trying to compete for that love and attention. And I feel bad that maybe he didn't get that sister. He didn't get that twin sister that would not compete with him. And I, but I was in a spot where I had to work hard. I had to do extra to gain that, to be seen by my parents, especially my dad. And that played a major role growing up, just trying to be accepted by my parents. And that acceptance from my mom never came. And so with my dad, I was his, favorite, because he, not favorite, but he liked that I was, studying a lot. I was, doing everything, not perfectly, but I was trying really hard to be seen by him. And I think also, like, when my dad found that cult, my need to be accepted by my parents was so high that I was like, if I do this, if I go along with this, my dad would see me. He would like I became a part of my parents again. And I would go along with it and, try to do good. And then there was a lot of pressure. Okay, we were supposed to meditate like 2 hours a day. And if I did that, then, my parents would get happy. And just to make them happy, I was kind of going along with those.
So before your dad starts experimenting in this world, you become a teenager and you have your late teenage years as well. What is your social life like during that time? Do you have lots of friends? Are you feeling accepted by the world?
Brandon, I was bullied a lot in grade 10. And that's when we kind of moved to Canada. And when we first moved here to Canada, again, I was bullied, but I did have friends. That kind of helped me go through high school kind of smoothly. So I did have friends, and which is actually, I do want to mention, my mom never liked me having friends. Even to this day, like, I still have the same friends that I had from high school. And I'm very lucky to have them in my life because, they've been there, those friends have been there through thick and thin with me. And just my dad was okay with my friendships and everything, but my mom was not okay with those. And to this day, she says she doesn't like me going out or having those friends because she doesn't accept them. I was pretty rooted as in culturally that I never dated. It wasn't allowed in my, religion and in my culture. So I never dated anyone. So I had no exposure to what relationships could look like and everything before I got married.
So eventually your dad goes down a spiritual path. So I guess explain the path that he goes down and everything that happens from there.
Yes. So I believe that was around 2007 or 2008. He found a website online that said, there's no religions and, it's all love. Like, we love each other and God is love. And I know it's like a hippie kind of thought process behind it, but that's what we kind of believed in. Like, even, as in my religion, like I see that, people fight over religions and everything. And I kind of get that from my dad as well. He believes in like, there's something bigger than that. There's something beyond than like, okay, you have to be put in this box. So he looked up those words and it was like a cookie cutter, like search that matched this website that he went to. And he's very private, as in like, he didn't tell anyone then. He did more research. He read up the website and everything. And he said, okay, this sounds great. And, we were living in Calgary at that time. And the teacher that he had found was actually from Toronto. And so he's like, he made up his mind that he's going to go see this teacher. Like, they spoke on the phone a few times. My mom spoke to the teacher and they really liked him the way he was. He was spreading love and peace and all that. So they spoke to him all over the phone. And then my mom and dad decided that they're going to go to fly out there and go see this guy. And at that time, like, he told my siblings and myself, but I was more to the spiritual side of things. So I was like, oh, that sounds great. Like, what is it about? And then they gave me a little rundown what it's about and everything. And they went out for a couple of days, met him, came back, and they were like, oh my God, it was amazing. He's an amazing guy. I think you should go see him. My dad was like, you should go see him. And, because my grandmother, like, who raised me was kind of a religious, spiritual person. I kind of grew up, like, when I was 13, 14, I would listen to a lot of, didn't even matter like what, if it was Christian music, if it was Sufi, which is Muslim music, or if it was Sikh music, like spiritual based. In Sikhism, yes, they do say like, everyone's equal and all that. But, we wanted to see if something beyond that, like, because people are unfortunately, sometimes they're very divided in, religions and everything. So yeah, growing up, I wanted to be accepted. I was looking for something was missing, like a father figure, a parent figure. So growing up, I would like look for God in things, and it sounds insane or like weird, but I was like, okay, maybe I can figure out if someone's up there, and I would pray. And so that kind of shaped me as a person, as who I was. And when they said, oh, you know what, we found this teacher and he talks about love and acceptance and everything. And I was like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. And my dad said, okay, next time we'll take you with us. And I was like, okay. And it was great. Like, they were interacting with me. I was accepted and I was being seen. So I was like, okay, that's great. So I went with them. And the teacher, when we met him, he was, he just knew your weaknesses and everything. Like when I went there to his house, he gave me so much love and acceptance that I wasn't used to from my own parents. And he sat me down and he spoke to me one-on-one. And he said to me, he's like, from today, I'm your dad. I don't know how he knew that I was looking for like a parental figure. And he said, from today, I'm your dad. And he's like, you're my daughter. And he gave me so much love that I believe it could be love bombing. I don't know. And I was hooked. I was like, you know what? This is like what, if there's a God up there, this is like a dad, a father figure that I was looking for. And he's, telling us all about love and acceptance and, loving each other, serving other people, doing good deeds for other people and not looking for rewards. Like, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, we just hit a jackpot. Like, this is amazing. Like, I found a meaning to my life. And so we flew back to Calgary, and then from there we would make phone calls with him, and he would tell us, okay, you need to meditate, you need to do these things. So it started out slow. There were no rules, but then it started adding up. Okay, you have to do this if, for this congregation. He would call it a congregation. And I believe that was 2011 or 2012. And then, I was working and I was far away because it's a different province. And then I started going to college and kind of fell through with the whole, spirituality and religion, because going to college and, it was just a different era. And I think my dad saw that. Like, I was dressing up more, I was focusing on my studies, and I was in a state where I wanted to dress up, look good, and also get grades and everything. So my dad saw that I was like kind of faltering away from the spiritual side. So in 2014, December, he said that in Toronto, the teacher had a big congregation planned. They used to do that for Christmas and New Year's. And this is what I liked about him as well, that, being a Sikh from his background, he kind of like celebrated Christmas and New Year's and everything as well. So, and my dad said, okay, my sister and myself, my sister was married at that point. She got married when she was only 21, and she was pregnant and she had a baby already. And my dad said that my sister and I and my mom and him were all going to go there for 4 to 5 days for the congregation. And at that time of my life, I was like, I felt pretty disconnected from that, because I was trying to fit in at college and everything. And I was like, I don't want to go. My dad's like, no, you should come. And he's like, okay, your flights are booked. And then we all went to Toronto and drove to the teacher's place. And Brandon, I kid you not, he had, I believe, 200 people. And those people were from backgrounds like dentists, engineers, entrepreneurs, and, they were like all educated people. And there were a lot of young kids, like in their 20s, and they were born and raised here. And even people flew out from UK. When we got there, I felt pretty ashamed. Like, I felt a lot of guilt on my own. I was like, then what I'm doing with my life, like I was dressing up. I was getting attracted to all these people in my school, in my college. Like, I was in my mid-20s, but I just felt that shame that, okay, that's not the path I want to be, even though it was pretty normal for a person. And we just sat there, and I was feeling pretty guilty. And this is actually the reason why I'm mentioning this is that's the day my ex-husband, who was a narcissist, that he saw me first. That was the first day that he saw me. He was there, and I was just sitting there, and, then when all the guilt was gone, he was talking about how, these things don't matter, dressing up and all that. The teacher was talking about that. And then I just like started bawling and, just crying. And I was like, what am I doing with my life and all that? And then just 4 days was really amazing. We sang, we danced, and just talked about love. And it felt like a family. It felt like we belonged there, that when we were supposed to go back to Calgary, I was actually crying, and I was like, I don't want to go. Like, this feels like a family. This feels like we're accepted and all that. And my sister felt the same, but we had to go.
So at this point, you had your initial meeting with the leader of this group, where you immediately felt that this person is my dad and I'm a daughter, and I feel accepted in that way. The distance in between put a little wrench into everything as far as going back to your normal life, and, that initial feeling dissipated as you went back into school, interacting with people that were not in that type of environment, who had nothing to do with it. And now you go back, and all of a sudden within those days, you feel the acceptance again, you feel this love again. And at this point, yes, you are hooked into that. what is the, you talk about how you go there. I'm just curious as, like, what does the building look like that you're in, or like, where are you congregating, and how does that all work? Where's everyone staying during this time? And is this cult someplace where like you're all together all the time? And do people eventually move somewhere?
Yes. So it was actually, so the teacher he didn't live in Toronto. He was like 2 hours away. But most of the congregation were from Toronto themselves. And the teacher bought a place by Windsor, Ontario. That's by Detroit. And they found like this old motel that was on sale. And it had, I believe, 12 rooms and a big hall, a massive hall. So that would house like all those people. There was enough room for all the people to stay. There was a big kitchen. There was a big hall. There was a lot of room. And it was right by the water. It was an amazing place. And that's where, it was like a vacation home. There was a dock, there was water, and, a massive place with like rooms. It was like an old motel that they had bought off someone. And that's where everyone was staying. And so, the whole being there, at the congregation and then coming into the normal life was like contradicting. I was like, okay, at one place, we were feeling so much love. And then when coming back to, college and everything and trying to be accepted and trying to be like, just being accepted by people and all that was like contradicting for me at that time. Like I didn't know which one was, what I was supposed to be at that point. So when we wouldn't constantly go to the congregation, like I would go back to the normal life and be a normal person in their 20s. And my dad saw that. And so he would try to like keep us connected. And I do want to mention, I didn't mention my brother with the congregation, because my brother was actually an atheist. He's still an atheist, and he didn't believe in religion or spirituality and everything. And that's okay. That's how he is. So my parents knew that there's no chance that he would go and see the teacher, and whatever he could hear about the teacher, he did not like him at all. And I wish I listened to my brother, because he was like, oh, why are you guys going there? Like, there's no person. If you want to do like spirituality or religion, he's like, there can't be a person in a God form. He used to say that. But we used to ignore him. We're like, no, you don't know anything and all that. Like, my parents would say, oh, no, if you had met the teacher, you would really like him. But regardless, 2014, that December, that's where my life changed. Because I was graduating next year in May from college. And that's when the teacher kind of flipped the script. Like, from love, it was, okay, you need to do this to be accepted. Like, you have to. So he started preaching, because he knew he had a hold on us. Like, he started preaching to us, saying that you can't have any attachments, you can't have any friends who are not part of congregation. And I was like, what? Like, I love my friends. They're, we've been friends for years. And he's like, no, like, if you want to show that you're serious about this thing, then you have to like break those attachments. And I ended up like not talking to my friends, distancing myself from them, and deleting them off Facebook back then without any explanation. And at that time, how things worked out was I got a job offer. I was looking for jobs as soon as I graduated. I got a job offer from Ottawa, Ontario. And the company said, they could fly me out there and I could start working there. And it was a great job. Then my dad's like, oh, he's like, it's a great opportunity and it was a great job. He's like, why don't you move out there and you'll be closer to the congregation as well? And I was like, yeah, I was kind of like, I don't know if I want to go, but also like I was torn. We decided like as a family that it's good that if I move out there, and my dad helped me move there. And when he moved me there, it was a 7-8 drive from Ottawa to where the congregation was held every weekend. So I used to drive every weekend 7 hours one way to go see the teacher and spend, 2 nights there and then drive back again. And at that point, my parents were kind of pressuring. I had a career. I was 25 and my mom was like, you should get married. And they were looking for people. And I wasn't sure that I wanted an arranged marriage because that's what my family believed in. So I was feeling a lot of pressure. And my mom's like, no, these are the pictures I'm sending you and you select a guy. And I was like, that's not how things work. And so I was under a lot of pressure and I saw that teacher as my father. So one day I opened up to him and I told him that I'm, stressed out and I don't think I'm ready to get married. I was like, maybe he can, just hear me and tell me what I need to do. And he's like, I'll talk to them. And he told them, he's like, don't pressure the girl, let her be. And I was like, oh my God, he's amazing. He's like a dad, he listens and he's, trying to help me out. But he had something else in the back of his head. Apparently my ex-husband was so good at manipulating the teacher that he had convinced him that he was supposed to get married to me. And that he saw a vision or whatever. I know it sounds insane. And Brandon, the thing is, my ex-husband was 16 years older than me. And he was married before. And one day when I went there for the weekend, at the congregation, the teacher told me that he thinks he has a person in his mind that would treat me really well. And he's an amazing guy. And I think I should consider him. And when he told me who this person was, first thing I said was, I was like, but he's the same age as my uncle. And, and I never I only saw him as he was much older. He was in his 40s and I gave him the respect I would give an older person. Right. And my guru then started using these tactics. He's like, oh, but you see, this is if you don't do this, that's just a test from your guru. If you say no, that means you're not fully 100% dedicated. And I was like, what? I was there by myself. And then they used the tactics saying, don't you love your family? If you love your family, if you do this, that guy is very spiritually elevated. And if you marry him, that's your test. And that would help your family as well. It would, give them good karma. And they would use that. And I was like, oh man, I know. And I would think to myself, I was like, man, but I'm not attracted to him. I don't want to get married. But if I do this, then, my family has a place or whatever, they'll be taken care of. And it was a struggle between what's right and what's wrong. And just kind of trying to convince myself that one day I was just shattered. And I was like, I just want to run away. I this is not okay. But then when I was driving back to Ottawa, I was thinking, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to run away. This is not for me. And I was driving back and I was under a lot of stress and I didn't notice that I was speeding. And then my teacher called and he said, oh, if you don't do this, the tone changed. It went from compassion and love and everything to oh, if you don't do this, okay, so you never were serious about this. It just changed to either you do this or you're going to get kicked out.
So it went from love and acceptance to fear, obligation, and guilt.
Yes, exactly. And I was like, you know what? I was like, okay, give me a few days. I was like, I need to think it over. And I was like, okay. Then on the call, I was like, okay, I can do it. I didn't want to get kicked out.
Do you say anything to your parents about what just happened? Or do you feel the weight of their life is on your shoulders? You maybe not want to burden them in any way. What is your, thought process here and how do you handle that?
And Brandon, funny thing is, what my teacher and his wife said at that time? They said, when we were discussing this, I was like, let me talk to my dad. And now I'm just thinking about it and I'm like, wow, they said, no, you can't talk to anyone else. You can't talk to them right now. It has to be your decision. So they kind of isolated me from my family in that sense.
Yeah. So they're isolating you here. and you are unable to get anyone else's perspective, and they're putting it on you. The pressure is on you in this situation. And,
Yes.
That isolation right there, really, they've done a really good number on you already right here.
That's right. And they had isolated me from my friends already, saying you have to give up your friends. And then from family, they're like, no, it's your decision. You can't talk to them yet. And you have to make the decision. And once you're sure, then you can tell them. And they were already at this point, the teacher, I was sitting there in the hall and there were other people present, and he started saying, oh, so your parents aren't so that's how you guys are, you're not dedicated. And I felt that embarrassment, and I felt and it's a big thing in South Asian community, your parents' respect and their place in society, it's on your shoulders. You cannot have someone say, oh, the child doing something bad, it reflects on parents. So I felt a lot embarrassed when he said that. And other people were around, but they couldn't say anything, the people from Toronto. But my family had no idea this was going in the background. So I felt that embarrassment. I was like, I don't want my dad. My dad has done nothing wrong. He's a great guy. He's very dedicated. But if I don't do this, it reflects back on them.
So this person did a really good job here as far as this specific cult goes, because it's not just finding you and going after your own insecurities. The second level here is they are specifically for a South Asian community, immigrant community for a lot of them. Newer countries for a lot of them, or maybe first, second, third generation, and understanding the hierarchy of the family unit and the importance of that as well, working that in here to gain leverage, to gain isolation, and to gain another level of guilt and fear and the obligation that you already felt to your family even before you entered this situation. From this point on, you have now bought in, you're fully isolated, and your future husband becomes more of this story. Yes,
sir. So then I was speeding, and they called me, and I got a ticket, and that's okay. But I'm just trying to, the reason I'm mentioning this is that's how my state of mind was at that time. It was under so much stress. I got a ticket on the way to Ottawa, and then next day I was so stressed out I couldn't talk to my parents, that all this was on me, that I got another ticket next day because I was driving without paying attention, because all this was going in my mind. Not to say that, not just to pinpoint everything on the stress. I should have been driving, carefully. But all this was going on. And then I went to Ottawa, and I was like, you know what? I had already said yes to them. And my teacher called me when I was at work on Monday. And he said, can you come to Toronto tomorrow? And I said, I work 9 to 5. And he said, no, it's okay. Just come tomorrow. So I was like, okay. He's like, come to my ex-husband lived. And I was like, okay, that's sudden. But he's like, yeah, you already said yes. He's like, I just want to tell people that, this is going to happen and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, that's fine. So I had to give my boss a notice, and I said, I have to go tomorrow, which was weird, but I was like, I can't, it was affecting my job as well. They gave me a day off, and I drove to, Toronto, Monday evening. And when I went there Tuesday, they used to have congregation. So they had weekends at the, place, the motel by Windsor, but on Tuesdays, they had it at my ex-husband's house. And they used to have a smaller one there every Tuesday evening. And I went there, I got there, and I met him one-on-one. And actually, before that, I met him one time over the weekend. Sorry. And I do want to mention this because this is very important. in a sense. Okay, so before that, actually, there was one weekend. I'm sorry, I mixed up my dates, and I was there at congregation, and my guru and his wife said that I should go out on a date with, this man, like with my husband. And I wasn't feeling comfortable. I was like, okay, this is weird. I've never been on a date before. So they said, no, it's okay. Just go for a drive, get to know each other. Because I already had said yes. And we went for a drive. But I was still a little weirded out because I only knew his first name. I had no idea who he was. And he took me to a Tim Hortons and we just sat there and it was awkward and it was raining and, we were just sitting there. We had coffee and then he's like, oh, I want to take you to a lake. And we went by a lake and we were just standing there and he's talking about spirituality, how elevated he is and all that, like, how blissful he is, like, because he's been so dedicated and like he's always like in a bliss. And Brandon, like when I saw him in the congregation, he was always laughing, always smiling. He had a big smile on his face and he always looked like he was in a bliss, like in a really good state. That people would talk about him. They'd be like, oh my God, look at this guy. I want to be like him. He's always like happy and all that. So we went to a lake and we were just standing there and he kind of hugged me. He was still kind of like a stranger to me. And as he hugged me, he kissed me. And I was in a shock because I had never kissed anyone. And we went back to the car and I was like thinking to myself, I was like, wait, did this really happen? And then we were sitting in the car and I told him, I was like, you know what, like, I want to come clean with you. I want to tell you that I'm not your typical, South Asian woman. Like I don't cook. I'm very ambitious about my career, but I'm not like a good cook. Like the way I know what South Asian men look for, like they want a wife that cooks and cleans and like, is very family oriented. And I was like, I'm not. I was like, I know we are getting into this thing, but I want you to know like the truth, like, that you won't get that from me. Like I'm not I was very tomboyish growing up. And he said, oh, no problem. He's like, I went to culinary school. And he's like, I know how to cook clean. He's like, the teacher says that if we get married, we'll be elevated in our spiritual journey. He's like, I see God in you. And he's like, I accept you for who you are. And he said all the right things. And I was like, oh my God, like, this is amazing. Like, I've never met anyone like this. Like, he's just amazing. It was love bombing and mirroring, right? So anyways, at that point, the teacher said, okay, I can tell my parents. And I told them, and I was talking to my sister and I told her that how he kissed me. And I was in a shock. I was like, he didn't even ask me. He just grabbed me and kissed me. And the reason why I'm mentioning that is because he would gaslight me later on. And he would tell me that never happened. And he would deny it completely, that I started thinking, okay, I'm making stuff up. But I'm glad that I mentioned it to my sister that same day. Otherwise, I would have thought that I was making stuff up in my head. But moving forward, that Tuesday when I went to his house, we got engaged, which I had no idea that was going to happen. I just came there thinking we're just going to meet up with everyone. And next thing I know, the teacher announced that we're engaged and we're getting married that same weekend.
So you went from knowing who he is from previous congregations to one day being told, hey, you're going to be marrying this person, or this person is interested in you, you two should date. So that moment of where you two are supposed to be interested in each other and date to the point of engagement, how long is that?
Maybe less than 10 days.
Okay, so less than 10 days here. Your life has been turned upside down in this way. But
yes,
your apprehension in those 10 days was turned upside down in those 10 days as well. You went from really being against it and thinking this is just, this person is older, I'm not attracted to them, this is what they did on the first date, to this person said every single right thing and you were on this spiritual journey and you're going along with it, and all of the spiritual stuff and accepting of who you are, that is all you needed to be like, and you're already in this cult to begin with. That's all you needed of a love bomb or a trust bomb to be, I'm sold.
Yeah, that's right. And Brandon, like when we got engaged, I told my teacher, I spoke to him and his wife. He wasn't talking to me at that point. He said, "Oh, you're a woman. You should talk to my wife if you have any questions." So it was it was a weird flip from going from a dad-daughter relationship to, okay, now you don't talk to me directly. You talk to my wife. So I spoke to her and I said, okay, that's fine. We got engaged, but I was like, I need some time. I was like, we got engaged. That's fine. I'm not going to break it off. I'm dedicated to it. But I was like, I need at least 6 months to wrap my head around this thing, and then I would get married to him. And she said, no, either you do it this weekend or you don't do it. And I was like, but what's the hurry? She's like, no, it's either it happens this weekend or it's not happening at all. And she's like, I don't think you can be part of this congregation. You're too weak, she said. And I was like, oh my God, again, like, the shaming. So I was like, you know what the hell? I'm going to get married 6 months down the road, or I can get married this weekend. That's how they kind of got me ready to get married. And at that point, the teacher called my parents and he said, okay, so I found the right match for your daughter. And she's getting married this weekend. You guys just come here. He's like, it's my daughter. So I found her the match.
Well, technically it's not shaming in a way. Well, there's shame, I guess, involved in there, but it's a future faking. And this future has been dangled in front of you, and now they are pressuring you to take it away. And the pressure of, either you do this or we're taking it away, that is what is driving you here.
That's right. And again, like that shame, okay, you can't do it. Your parents, like, didn't raise you well. Like they knew like exactly like what they needed to say and do for me to, do whatever they wanted to do. They knew me. They played me really well. And at this point, I had no idea he was married before my husband to be. I knew nothing about him. And from that Tuesday to that weekend, that's when I started asking everyone. I was like, okay, like, I don't know anything about him. Like then I found out he has a brother and a sister. His sister's young, like he's the eldest, and his sister's married. She lives in the States, and he has a brother who lives back home. But his brother was also in mid-30s. And that's when I started finding about the family. And his parents bought tickets. They lived in India. They bought tickets and they flew out to Toronto to attend the wedding. So did my parents. And it was very sudden.
Were your parents happy?
They were, because they were feeding the same stuff that they were feeding me to my parents. Like my parents were being talked to behind my back. Like they would call my dad directly and be like, oh, you know what? You should be proud of your daughter. You've raised her well. Like they were feeding, the whole, okay, you did well, to like kind of keep them under the wraps. And they were telling them that, they were made to feel good, that you've raised a good daughter. You guys are doing great. You'll be fine. We'll take care of you, all that and stuff.
So they were behind the scenes, they're separating everybody. And behind the scenes, they are pressuring when pressure is needed. They're shaming when shaming is needed. And then they're massaging egos when needed as well, as far as convincing people, especially your parents here, massaging the ego of, you've done a great job. You've done this, you've done that. They're praising you in a way, as far as, if they're getting this love from the cult here, that is what they joined it for. So they, of course, want to continue to receive that love. And so they know in that instance, praising them is a way to have them not question anything, because in a way they're getting what they wanted when they joined, if that makes sense.
Basically, yeah. And Brandon, like, then they started like saying, oh, look at these two people. They're getting married because we told them to get married. And then they're using us in front of the other congregation to control them, saying, see, they listen to us. They're good, followers, and you guys should be more like this. And then they were praising us in front of them. So it was like a whole manipulation. Like, if you do what we tell you to do, we're going to lift you up. Like, they were putting guilt and shame on other people to control them better as well. Mm-hmm. And the day of the marriage came, and actually a couple days before the marriage, because it wasn't in a temple. We, as Sikhs, we do it in a Sikh temple. So they didn't believe in the Sikhism. The teacher didn't believe in that. He just believed in love, in his own, what he was preaching. So he took myself and my ex-husband to a court in London, and then we got court registered, which I had no idea. They would just tell me, get ready and show up here. And I would get there, and then they'd be like, oh, by the way, we're taking you here, and you're going to go to a court and sign and get married. It was very no kind of consent, just do as I say and you're good. And so for the day that we got married in front of the congregation was just a party. And it was to make it official in front of the other people. We had already signed the papers. And then they sent us to a hotel for the first night. And I want to mention this because, that's when I saw how my ex-husband flipped. So he was all love, all acceptance, everything, until the night of the marriage. I was uncomfortable and I was tired. So I told him, I just wanted to sleep it off. I was exhausted mentally and everything. And when I said that to him, I kind of rejected him. He wanted to do things, and I was nervous as well because it was my first time, and I told him no, and he just closed off. And he became like ice and completely ignored me, and he got upset and just didn't talk to me the whole night. And I was like, whoa, what just happened? He was amazing, laughing, happy-go-lucky guy. And I saw another side to him because I had said no to him. And next day when we drove back to the congregation place, and he wasn't talking to me in the car. And I was like, what is happening? He, this isn't him. And when we got there and the teacher was standing, and he completely changed, and he was happy and laughing and all that. And I was just confused. I was like, how could someone just switch on and off, all these emotions, which I didn't understand back then. But I was like, what is happening? I don't understand. And that's when he started, just putting me down. His parents were over, we went home. And the next morning, when we got to his apartment, and his parents were over, and he told me, okay, you have to get up at 6 a.m. and make them breakfast. Remember when I told him that I'm not a South Asian wife? I don't do those things. I'm, I was very tomboyish. The very next day he had that, you have these responsibilities and you have to do these things. And he's like, oh yeah, my parents wake up at 6 a.m. You wake up at 6 a.m., go to the kitchen and make them breakfast. And I was just in a shock. How can someone go a complete 180? And I was like, okay, no problem. I woke up. I didn't know what I was doing. And then his mom was before she was all lovey-dovey, oh my God, I found the perfect daughter-in-law to kind of nagging. She doesn't know how to do this. It's okay. Oh, you don't know how to do this. Kind of putting me down. And it was just that's when I started seeing that he wasn't, and his mom, they weren't the people that I thought they were. And he just like, started putting pressure, like as in like I wasn't working at that time. Like, I was still living in Ottawa. Sorry, I was still living in Ottawa because I still had my job. And he said, oh, you know what? Why don't you quit your job and move here? He's like, I want you to move here. And I said, I have a really great job. I had an engineering position and at that time, and I was like, I don't want to lose it. Like I've only been there 6 months, and I want to build up my resume so I have some experience so I can find another job. And he's like, okay, then you know what? You're going to come here every weekend. And I said, that's fine. We were married, so I would drive to Brampton every Friday evening. And then I was like, I'll leave Sunday afternoon, and we would go to congregation. And then I was like, then I can just go back to Ottawa. And my ex-husband said, no, you're going to spend Sunday night and you can leave at 3 a.m. on Monday morning. And I was like, no, I work, at 9 a.m. He's like, that's okay. You can go straight to work. And I didn't see those things that, how he didn't think about me and everything. But I was like, okay, that's fine. I can do that. And I would drive at 3 a.m. I would wake up, take a shower, and drive straight to work from, Toronto to Ottawa and go to work directly. It's just insane, like, to think, the things, not knowing, like, there's people out there like that and dealing with all this. And, I think I see, and I want to mention this, it could be the lack of self-love that, people like us that don't have boundaries and we go along with it just to be accepted and everything. And I think self-love is very important, where you say no and you understand that, there's nothing wrong with you. But it's just like, I don't know. I still can't wrap my head around, like, what happened and everything. And like Brandon one time, so he was very like, I had a best friend from, congregation. There was this girl, she was my age. She was like a sister to me, and we used to hang out a lot. And she was the only time like I hung out with her, we would go for coffee or something, that I would feel normal. I would feel accepted. And he would tell me that I shouldn't hang out with her. And he started making up stories that we were a thing, her and I. And I was like, what are you talking about? She's my friend. Like, she's like a sister to me. Like, what are you talking about? And he started talking to the teacher, telling him that how I was sleeping with her, which is even insane to think about. Like, we were best friends and, we were same age, and she understood me. I understood her. And he started like making all these things up that I was unfaithful and I was going around his back and just, seeing other people and everything. And it was just insane. And he made up a big lie about, for honeymoon, we went to Cuba and we had relations and everything. And he was apparently telling my teacher that I hadn't touched him. Like, I haven't like allowed him to, I haven't slept with him, which I had no idea he was telling him that. And even a year into our marriage, one time the teacher got upset because he was being told all these things, that he yelled at me in front of other people, saying that I haven't consummated with him. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I didn't say anything because I was, embarrassed, but it was a big lie. And the teacher was yelling at me, and there were other people sitting there listening. And I was embarrassed that they're sharing, this personal information. They're talking about these things in front of other people. And my ex-husband was just sitting there smirking. And I was just crying. I was like I didn't want to like tell him like, that's not true, because he wouldn't listen. The teacher wouldn't listen. He was just yelling. And my ex was just sitting there like smirking. And I still can't forget, like, how can someone smirk when someone's crying and being degraded in front of other people? And he got physically violent as well. So what he would do is, so he had the teacher wrapped around his finger. He would talk to him. He would feed him all these lies or whatever he was telling him, that I wasn't a good wife. I was rebellious. I was doing, I wasn't doing anything I was supposed to, that the teacher started hating me. And I don't know, whatever he was telling. And one time, like, we got into an argument, and And I got upset because I was like feeling so much pressure. I was like, no one's listening to me. The teacher doesn't want to listen to me. My parents don't want to listen to me, because the image that my ex-husband had in front of my parents was like, he's always laughing. He's like this amazing person, that no one knew what he was like when he was alone with me. That he was so full of anger. He was so full of jealousy, insecurity, that he would tell me, you can't use your phone when I get home. And he told me I couldn't watch TV when he would come home from work and everything. And one day, we got into an argument, like I was saying, and I've had it. And I was like, you know what? I was like, I need some space. I was like, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go for a drive. And he followed me. I went to the kitchen because I wanted to like be away from him. And he started choking me, and he held me by the wall, and he was strangling me. And he's like, oh yeah, what are you going to do? And I was like, leave me. Like, I was like, leave me alone. I need to get out. I need to breathe. I need to like get out of here. And I like, he kept like, pushing harder and harder on my neck. And he's like, you can't go anywhere, he said. And to like, I tried pushing him away, but he was way stronger. But I tried like, like shoving him away. And then when I did that, he got even more upset, that he started like punching me. And then I tried like running away, and he grabbed me and he threw me on the couch, and he sat on me, and he's like, you can't go anywhere. He's like, what are you going to do? And I started like screaming for help. When I started doing that, he let me go, and then I ran out, and I was so scared. I grabbed my car keys and I sat in the car shaking, and I locked the car, and I kept looking at the door of the building, and I was like, oh my God, he's going to come here. He's going to do something. And I locked the car door, and I was just shaking and crying. And when that happened, like, I called my dad, and I was like, Dad, like, he put his hands on me. And my dad's like, it's okay, just go back. He's like, I'll talk to him on the phone. And I was like, I don't want to go back. He's like, no, just go. And I gave him the phone. I don't know what my dad said, but when he hung up, you know what my ex-husband said? He said, your dad said, oh, that's just my daughter. He's like, I'm sorry, like, just ignore her. She's always been like this. Like, he made me look like the bad guy, that I had no support. And I was like, what the heck? Like, why would my dad say that? But I believed him. And then I was talking to my ex, and I was like, why would you like lay your hands on me? And he would not apologize. And he said, oh, you made me do it. He's like, you made me do it. He's like, you were behaving in a way that I had to do it. Like, there was no accountability. And I was brainwashed, or I was like manipulated in a way that I actually started believing that I'm crazy, that I'm doing these things that's driving him to lay his hands on me. And it's just insane, like, thinking about it right now. Like,
if someone can put their hands around your neck, they have the ability to do the next step, which is to take your life. And it's a scary place to be. And for you, in this moment, you're dealing with this person. Is it fair to say that you don't even know if calling police is even an option in the world that you're currently living in, because there's such a grip of control, not just from your partner, but from the whole cult, at the point where, like, breaking up your marriage isn't just breaking up your marriage. It's not just breaking up, you're breaking up your beliefs.
And that's right, Brandon. Like, at that point, like, the way we were brainwashed was, even above the police and everything, was the teacher. That I was thinking, I was like, should I call the cops? But I was like, if I did that, the teacher would be disappointed. So I was like, should I talk to him, like, and see if he can help me out? And I tried doing that. And I asked him if I can go sit down with them, the teacher and his wife. And I talked to them, and I said, he's very abusive. And guess what? The blame was put on me. They said, oh, we'll talk to them. But my teacher's like, you're doing this, this. He told me you do this, 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 this. And if only you did this, like, whatever they wanted me to do. He's like, this wouldn't happen. And I knew that no one's going to help me. Like, I'm by myself. And if I call my dad, they wouldn't believe me. And my teacher didn't help me. And if I called the cops, it would be like, oh, you went behind. Like, the teacher would put all the blame on me and my family. So my hands were tied. And the only person I could talk to was my best friend, like the girl, I was hanging out with. And I told her, I confided in her. And I said, like, dude, this is what's happening. Like, he's not who he says he is. And she was same age as me, and she was being manipulated. And she's like, you know what? Talk to the teacher. He can help you out. And it was just like no one was listening. No one was helping. No one, not my family. I couldn't call the cops because then the teacher would put guilt and blame on myself and my parents, even worse. And I just felt like I was like, I'm done for. Like, there's nowhere for me to go. And I just realized that, and I would cry every night. I would cry and be like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? And I was like, there's nowhere for me to go. And I would pray, and I'd be like, my intentions were in the right place. Like, I was trying to find God and got myself into this whole mess, and I would cry and I would pray. And Brendan, I don't know if there is a God or anything, but my prayers got heard one day. And what happened was my teacher, he was struggling a lot because he was manipulating people to a point where I don't know if there's a karma or not, but he started having a lot of health issues to the point where he lost his sleep. And his wife was struggling, and he was struggling, that they started asking for help. Like, they weren't telling us that they were struggling, but the people that they were close to, like one or two people in the congregation, that they started asking for help and saying, okay, something's wrong and everything. And they went to another teacher behind all of our backs. Like, we just found out after. And that teacher apparently could see right through them. And they said, okay, we can't sleep. We're losing our mind. What do we do? And that spiritual person who, was from back home, he said, you know what? He's like, you've been lying and manipulating so many people that your karma you're getting your karma back. And he said, you have to come clean and tell people that you're not a true teacher, that you've been manipulating and lying, and you have to come clean, and you have to stop this congregation right away and come clean to people. And he's like, once you do that, then you could, slowly get back to normal, but you have to be truthful.
How did you find that out?
So what happened was, they didn't tell us straight up. The guru that was manipulating us started saying that, I'm just going to go, off the radar, and I'm going to start living by myself. I can't help you guys anymore. Like, he became the victim in that whole situation, saying that we had put so much bad karma on him that he was struggling, that he's just going to go off radar and he's no one's teacher anymore. Like, he didn't come and say that he wasn't a true teacher. He just started putting that blame on us, saying that we had caused all this bad karma, that he had to go off radar. And we all felt bad. We're like, oh my God, like, we've put him through so much. And then slowly he started saying that he's not a teacher, that he has to close this whole place down. And then when we started realizing that, okay, something's wrong, then he started using, he said that he knows everything about us because we used to confess. He used to tell us that confessing is good, like confession is good. And we would tell him our deep, dark secrets. And when we started figuring out, okay, he's not true, and he, that something was wrong, he was just manipulating us, he said, oh, I know all your secrets. He's like, if anyone goes behind my back, and he said this straight up to all of us, he's like, I know every deep, dark detail about you guys. He's like, if anyone says anything, he's like, I'll tell everyone. And I was just sitting there. I don't know about the others. And I was like, what in the hell? Like, okay, like, what? Like, we confided in you because, we thought confessing and confession is good. And like, he's just like being manipulative. That's when I saw it. And I was like, what? like, who is this person?
The manner in which you kind of found out about it, was it through, like, was it you guys just piecing it together? Because you say the way you tell it is it's as if like you heard the conversation, verbatim. So is it more of like you guys cobbled it together, or like someone who was told that information by them then related it in like a broken telephone kind of way?
So Brandon, like that guru was like telling us, oh, he's going to leave and this is like, this isn't working out and all that. And then there were other people that were closer to him, and the person who had found the other teacher, that the one that said, okay, you need to stop this, whatever this is happening. Like that person from the congregation was closer to that teacher as well. And that teacher had told him that this is all nonsense. Like he's manipulating people. So we all kind of got to get.
So you guys were getting information in some ways from the teacher where it's like, what's kind of going on here? And then, his confidant did a little bit more research and started to give you guys information about what was going on, and more of things started to, at that point, like whatever conversations you did hear, more people were talking about it and more people were open about what was kind of happening, and you were able to kind of figure out the big picture of what was probably said in these conversations and make educated guesses and assumptions of what happened.
Yes. So sorry. Like the teacher he didn't outright say he was wrong. Like when he did say, like he would say, oh, I know everything about you guys. So it took us almost 4 or 5 months to figure it out that it's over. And we were manipulated. So we all kind of got together. Even to this day, we talk about it, that what had happened. So, he said, okay, I'm not your teacher. You're on your own and all that. And that's when I was like, you know what? Since he told me that I had to get married to my husband, and I was bounded by that, right? I couldn't leave. And I was like, now's my chance. Like the teacher's not there to manipulate me anymore. So I told my husband, I was like, you know what? Like, I think then our marriage was a sham. I was like I started like thinking about that, and he started manipulating me, and he's like, no, don't think about that. He's like, you still have to think about your spirituality. Like, if you leave me, like, think about your spirituality. Like he would hold that against me. And I went to a friend of mine, like who was in the congregation, and I confided in them how, like, he was manipulative and he had put his hands on me again. And then, that he was physically abusive and everything. And then I was scared to share and everything. And, that person said, you know what? He's like, if you want to live, he's like, forget about your parents, forget about congregation. He's like, get out of this thing. He's like, leave. He's like, you're not happy. It's weighing you down. He's like, you should just, get out if you can. And that's when I like started thinking, okay, there is a chance. I know my parents are going to be super upset, but I was like, if I stay even a year longer, I'm going to end up like taking my own life or something. And I had made up my mind. I was like, what am I going to do? Like, how do I get out? So I told a couple of the people from the congregation, and I was like, I'm going to leave. Like, what do I do? I'm so scared. They said, it's okay. You can stay with us, and, we'll support you. And I had told some of my other friends, I was like, what if he gets physical? Like, he's, and one of the girls, she said, just give me a call. She's like, I'll stay by the building. And she's like, if something happens, just give me a call and I'll come up and like, I'll help you, or I'll call the police. Like, then people like started, listening when the whole thing broke down, and they like, started helping me and everything. I had made some friends, and I was still thinking, maybe we can work this out. Maybe, if I tell him that I'm going to leave, maybe he can change himself and we can make this work. And he was love bombing me and everything. And I told him, it wasn't working out, and I I had lost myself, and I was like, I need to leave. And he was crying, and he's like, look into my eyes. He's like, I'm very upset. I'm very sad. He's like, I love you. And I was like, I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore. And as soon as I said that, he flipped, and then he started like cussing me out. And he said, oh, I know your parents probably told you this. He's like, I'm pretty sure when you went back home, you guys found another guy. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, he's like, oh, you're probably talking to someone else. Like, he just started like saying all that. And I was like, you know what? You can think whatever you want to think. And I wish you the best. And I was like, but I just can't do this anymore. I left him, but I was still crying because, I was married to him. He was my partner. When I left that day, I sat in my car and I waited like 30 minutes. I was like, maybe he could change his, ways, and maybe he could come back, and maybe he could convince me. Maybe he could change for better. But he never came out. And I called my brother, and I was just bawling. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, and he's like, it's okay. Just start your car. And he's like, just start driving and you'll be okay. I was still hoping that, things could work out. And I crashed at one of my friend's house. And next morning, my ex-husband gave me a call. And I was happy. I was like, maybe he'll tell me I can come back or something. Maybe he'll change. Even at that point, I was hoping to, like, that maybe, things could get better. And he called me and he said, oh, by the way, you owe me this much money. He's like, I want that money back. And I was like, what? You're calling me to like tell me that I owe you like some money? I was like, what the heck? Like, I would think that you're like, I love you, like come back or something. But he was just completely cold. And yeah, that's.
So at that point, you are out of the relationship, and then you and your parents, when do you officially, leave the organization?
So my parents still didn't know exactly what happened. And the teacher was calling them, separately, telling them things, whatever he wanted to tell them. And I called my dad and my mom, and I was like, I'm leaving him. And my dad's like, no, he's such a great guy. Why are you leaving? I was like, no, Dad, I can't do this. And things are over. And like, this was all a sham. And they just wouldn't believe me. They're like, what are you talking about? I was like, this was all a sham, like the whole cult and everything. And it took me like, when I flew back to Calgary like 2 days later, and I had told my boss that all this had happened and I was broken. And I was like, I need some time off. And he was amazing. He said, okay, take leave. He's like, you still have your job. He gave me 4 months off to go and heal. And I can't thank him enough for that. So I went back, and my parents were still like, no, this was real, like, the congregation. And I was like, no, like, you need to come to terms with it. Like, it was all a sham. And, this is what happened. And then they slowly kind of caught up. And then, like, now we're like, oh my God, like, it's been since 2018, it's been like 3 years. Now we're just coming to terms with like, this actually happened. This is the kind of manipulation we were like involved in. And now like we're slowly wrapping up our heads around it.
You can only answer for yourself, but you were looking for this higher power to guide you. What is your relationship with a higher power or God or these systems after this, and your relationships with the people that were involved? Do you feel a camaraderie with them, or do you feel like you don't want to be around them because there might be a lot of shame or guilt surrounding it all?
That's actually a very good question. So Brandon, out of all this, I lost my faith. And faith and hope is like one of those things where when it's broken, like you feel like it was awful. I lost my faith, and, I'm trying to slowly work on it. And there was, about the congregation, there was a lot of shame and guilt. Like, we just all felt ashamed, like we fell for that. And we were part of this big, congregation. And now, it was all a lie. Like, it's slowly kind of like catching up to us. I do want to mention one thing. We had a group, like a congregation. We had an app called Cacao. We used to, kind of communicate on that. And when the things ended, they just, like, on those last days, they said, okay, it's done. We're selling the place. And, if you have any stuff, you can come get it. And it was just like that, like a very, like, vague, okay, if you have any items, or people had their own rooms and everything, and they said, you can come get your stuff. And that was it. And then we were all just talking to each other, okay, now what? And yeah, so it's still to this day, when we talk about it, it's a lot of confusion and shame. Like, some people don't even talk about it. They ignore it like it never happened. And because it's it's falling for something like that. It's like, and these are like all educated people. Like, how do you even explain this to other people? Like, what happened? And me, I started talking to my friends from, which I had isolated from. It was awkward explaining to them what had happened, why I went MIA, and how I got married. And it was really uncomfortable and weird and shameful to tell them what, like, I had fallen for this thing.
You saying all of these things, people who listen to the show know that I watch a lot of movies and documentaries. And for some reason, what popped up in my head is this documentary called Enron, The Smartest Guys in the Room. And it's about the rise and fall of Enron, which was a company in the United States which started off as an energy company, and then all of these crazy things happened. But everyone that worked there really bought in to the company, and they really bought in. Like, they, it wasn't a company. They were like, we're this thing. We're more than a company. We're a family. We're this entity. And, like, we care about your life and all these things. And it was really a house of cards, but within that house of cards, people would do things in there that they might not have normally done. They went along with things, and things that they might have felt shame for after. And, eventually this company went bankrupt, and they show on, like, the day of when everything went bankrupt and everyone's leaving. They're taking their boxes out of the building, and you can just see how upset everyone was because they didn't see that coming. They just wasn't what they were being told. So when you're telling me all this, I mean, you in a weird sense were involved in an Enron, except they were morally bankrupt, and it wasn't a monetary thing. And now you guys are leaving this place all with your belongings and your boxes kind of lost and wondering where to go next. Thinking that you were going to be belonging to this amazing thing forever. And now it's kind of gone, and you had relationships with people within that organization. There's this real sour taste now about, what all of those things are. And it's a really difficult thing to deal with, because we're not talking now about a business here. We're talking about your belief in what life is. And it's a hard thing to wrap your head around and figure out.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Brandon. The way you've explained it makes so much more sense. And yes, you've nailed it. And again, I can't thank you guys enough.
And as far as, like, your healing, what kind of things have you been doing that are non-medication related to I guess, figuring out what you went through and then, reprogramming your brain, not just from the cult, but, your tendency before all of this began to need the approval of your parents?
So, because they didn't know, they weren't there. They only knew what the teacher was telling them. So there was a lot of sitting down and talking to them about that, and regarding, just catching up. And like, first of all, when you go through this situation, like, acceptance is I think, like, in my journey, it was just sitting down and accepting that, yes, this happened. That we went through this thing and we got manipulated and all this, and just accepting it, that, yes, this was real, this happened, and that's okay. And then just reading up, and, I've done a lot of reading up, YouTube, podcast, everything to this day to, come in terms with it. You have to come to terms with, like, you were manipulated, and sometimes that could be heartbreaking, and it could affect a person's ego, thinking, oh my God, I was so, I wasn't, I've said all these negative things to myself. I was an idiot. I fell for this, but that's okay. Like, you have to accept it. That's okay. Like, I didn't know any better. We didn't know any better that this happened, accepting it, and then kind of seeing what you need to do. You need to get help. I've done some therapy as well. And that's when actually I had no idea what narcissism was before getting therapy. When I did therapy, the person I was speaking to, they said that, my ex was a narcissist. That's when I started looking at what narcissism was, and then doing a lot of research and finding out what it is. And thanks to your podcast as well, like, I relate to a lot of things, and just doing research and finding out what happened. And when you kind of know what you went through, and then, I think healing process starts. And then you can, now I'm building my self-love, like, I'm building myself back up now, because I used to think something was wrong with me. And now I'm like, you know what? I went through some stuff, like, and that's okay. I didn't know any better. And now I'm going to build enough self-love, have boundaries, and, and kind of go from there.
And if you had any words of wisdom or advice for others that are going through the same thing, what would it be?
Yes, I would say trust your gut and research, get help, talk about it, write, journal, whatever you need to do. Your experience, your journey is valid, and and just work on rebuilding yourself. And I really want to thank you guys for this podcast. You don't know how much it's helped me, and I'm pretty sure there's other people like me that listen to other people's stories, and they're like, oh my God, I went through the same thing. There's other people like me out there, and it's real, and it's happened. And then you can accept, validate, and then kind of work on getting better.
And Phoenix, I really want to thank you for being a guest on our show and sharing your story. We don't get many stories sent to us where it has to do with being in a cult, and everything you said today within the story of being in the cult, within your relationship with the narcissist of your life that you're married to. All the hallmarks of abuse were there, including you had physical abuse, but all of the emotional abuse and narcissistic abuse traits were there. And I really want to thank you for sharing your story, being vulnerable. It's not easy to discuss what you discussed with all of the shame attached, and you're going to help a lot of people today. So thank you so much. And now, for people that want to be a guest on our show, please do go to our website at narcissistapocalypse.com. At the top of the page, there's a button that says guest form. When you click that button, from there, it will take you to a guest form page. It has all of these instructions. Read all of the instructions and then send us either an email at narcissistapocalypse@gmail.com or fill out our guest form on the website. And also at our website at narcissistapocalypse.com, we have a support group button at the top of the page. And when you press on that button, it takes you to our very own safe social network. On there, we have forum boards that people post on. We have integrated Zoom meetings, which happen on Wednesday nights, Saturday nights, and every other Thursday afternoon. There will be one this week. And we have ad-free episodes on there. We have bonus episodes on there. And if you just want to support the show, join our support group. That helps support the show as well. Even if you don't want any of that other stuff, if you really want to support the show, join our support group. And you can do that at narcissistapocalypse.com. Top of the page, press that support group button. And if you need even more support, please do go to domesticshelters.org. And if you or someone you know are experiencing abuse, you are not alone, because domesticshelters.org offers an extensive library of articles and resources that can help you make sense of what you're experiencing. And they can connect you with local resources and find ways for you to heal and move forward. So if you need more help and you need more support, please do go to domesticshelters.org to access this free resource. And that is it. I think next week is our 3-year anniversary, I think. I think that's what it is. So, or maybe 2 weeks from now. One of those two. Anyway, besides that, I really want to thank Phoenix once again for being a guest on our show. And from Phoenix and myself, we hope you have a good night.